Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. These days, it's rarely a case of if you'll be hacked and more of a question of when. Once the attacker has passed your defenses, they cover their tracks and systematically infiltrate your network to steal information or shut your business down. You need to rethink the way security is delivered for your digitally transformed business, and there's one security solution that delivers it all: NetScout. Get visibility without borders for consistent detection, mitigation, and prevention across any network, data center, cloud, 5G, and more. Learn more at securityweekly.com/NetScout.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jeff Meehan. If I can get my teleprompter to work, I'll read my announcements. We need your help in a survey we are running for research purposes for an upcoming webcast. Please visit securityweekly.com/5 stages of automation security. Yes, that's a mouthful. To submit your responses to our survey. We want to understand how you're doing in automating different security programs. We will share the results in a webcast in November. Tony Meehan is Vice President of Engineering at Endgame, where he leads the development of the company's cyber operations platform. Tony comes to Endgame after spending 9 years at the National Security Agency, where he served as technical director and chairman of the Computer Network Exploitation Developers Conference. Tony's strong leadership was notably recognized with the Director of National Intelligence Meritorious Unit citation, a prestigious recognition as his contributions to the intelligence community, as well as the Labyrinth Theseus Award. Tony's research has been presented at a range of defense institutions, including West Point and the Office of Naval Research. I always love it, Tony, when I have all these interesting federal names to announce. But welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize you had that mouthful to go through. No, I love the podcast, and watching you all kind of give your takes on Black Hat and RSA is always enjoyable. So I'm honored and really excited to be on the show today.
And, Endgame's been a great sponsor of ours over the years. And, normally I have Ian on, and I just love the British accent. And so I was like, oh, we have an Endgame interview. I get to talk to Ian again. And no, I get to talk to you. But I think this is great because the topic we're going to talk about building engineering teams. And I think it's a really great topic for security folks who are, trying to build a product, trying to do a startup. We talked about some funding announcements in the last segment. And one of the things I said is, guys, $4.6 million doesn't go very far when you have to go out and hire a bunch of engineers. I don't think people realize how expensive it is to actually hire good engineering talent to build a product.
Yeah, it's hard. And we, Endgame has been around for a long time. I think I heard someone on this segment earlier, sort of talk about, effectively the reason that I think in 2016, whenever we've been around for a long time, we're not really a startup, even though we sort of like to think of ourselves that way. And I think that's what someone was talking about earlier. But in 2016, that's kind of when we made a pretty big pivot as a company to go all in on endpoint security. And I think you all were just talking about, it's 100 different endpoint security vendors alone in the market. It's pretty crowded. So it was a hard problem, and there was a lot of anxiety and pressure on the team. And we couldn't just go out and hire 100 people overnight. It was something that kind of evolved over time. And so that experience, we learned a lot going through that on how to build a team, and we found that's actually maybe even more important than the actual product that you're building. And it's there's a lot of lessons learned in that experience. I think that applies not just to product companies, but anyone like a SOC or any security organization.
Yeah, having done a couple startups, I think I got lucky in my first startup. I found a really good chief architect, a guy that followed me, that we kind of went together a few different places. And then when you have a really good talent like that, then I think it's a lot easier to build a really good engineering team around, because somebody you trust, is there kind of as that foundational element. How did that kind of transpire at Endgame? I mean, like you said, you've been around for a while, but the question is, how do you start to build out a really good engineering team to build a product? Because people think it's easy, but it's actually not that easy.
Yeah. So it's, I guess I like to think about it sort of in two buckets. There's sort of the hiring and the type of people you're bringing in. And then there's the how does the team work together, especially in times of pretty intense stress. So whenever we're talking to people about bringing them on board, I mean, you just said it. If you know someone that you trust that's already on the team and they've got a network of people that they trust, that's the best way to do it. But if in the absence of that, or actually even if you're talking to those people, we actually try to look for a couple of values that we think are important. I mean, you're in an interview, you're talking to someone about their skill set and experience, but you're also trying to look for kind of some intangibles like are they humble? Do they have the capacity to kind of put a problem above themselves and really focus on that? That's an important thing to look for. Are they curious? Do they ask a lot of questions? If you're talking to someone about a problem that they've worked on, you can usually get a sense of how engaged they were with a problem. Were they excited about it? And how much did they know about why that problem mattered to their organization or their team or their company? You can kind of get a sense of how curious someone is. And then the last thing that I think we like to kind of look for is that tenacity. Are they going to give up easily, or are they going to persist through a really hard problem and try to really get the root cause or get an answer to either why something's broken or how to actually make something work? And those are kind of hard things to look for. It was sort of done over time, something that we kind of learned, but it's just in addition to whether or not you can do the job, you're looking for, whether or not there's sort of a culture fit. And that you got to be kind of it's a dangerous thing to say, because you don't want to keep hiring people that look like everyone else at your company or your team. You really want a diverse set of backgrounds and experiences, because you want people to challenge ideas and to trust one another enough to feel safe that they can actually say, hey, maybe that's not the best way to solve that problem. So yeah, that's sort of the three different things that we try to look for when we're talking to people.
So did you? Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I'm fascinated by what you say makes sense. Fleshing it out and seeing what it looks like, and from both sides of the table, whether you're hiring or whether you're seeking employment, is what I find intriguing. Mm-hmm. So touching on the idea of, are they humble? That's sort of counterintuitive if I'm somebody going on a job interview, or if I'm trying to coach somebody or mentor somebody that's going on job interview, where you're supposed to be selling yourself. You're supposed to be trying to demonstrate, I'm a capable individual. I can do the job and so much more. I'm the one that you want to hire. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
And do it in a humble way and not come across
it's a good question. I'll maybe try to give you a very specific example.
Sure.
Typically, you're looking for overconfidence. We had an interview a couple of years ago with someone that we were looking for experience working on endpoint and kind of kernel development. And there was sort of a red flag moment in the interview where the individual said they only like to work on MP hard problems, which is kind of it was an unusual thing to say. It was a red flag for a couple of reasons. There was some kind of overconfidence. I don't know about the two of you, but I don't consider working on a Jenkins build breaking an MP hard problem, but it was really important for us to get a product out a couple of days ago. And so you're sort of, that overconfidence is kind of a red flag, because you want to make sure that no matter what the problem of the given hour or day is for a customer, the thing that's right for the organization is to solve that problem, no matter how easy or hard it is to do. And that overconfidence can sometimes be an indication that an individual isn't going to want to work on, easy problems, and perhaps they're not going to maybe even get along with other people on the team because they only want to invest their energy on things that they think are the hardest, no matter if it's actually the right thing to do for the organization. And I don't know if that answers your question, but that's overconfidence is probably maybe a better way of saying it.
I think it does answer it in a predictable way. I'm more interested in, do you have an example? Can you think of an example of sort of what you are looking for? What does it look like to be humble? And be selling yourself at the same time. So any sort of positive experiences that you could share.
Yeah.
So that people can copy whether they're sincere or not. That's
an excellent question. So I think, for me at least, I really like it whenever someone can say that they've got some experience and they want to kind of bring that experience to bear in an organization and teach others some things that they've learned from either producing or building something similar to what we need in their past jobs. But at the same time, no matter how much experience someone has, you always want to make sure that they're also willing to be a student and learn from other people, whether you're just out of high school or college, or if you've been doing it for 30 years. And that's really important, because I don't think I've ever met a jerk that was also a really good student. Typically someone who's a toxic person in the workplace doesn't need to learn anything, and they have to teach everyone else what needs to be done. So that's kind of an important quality that we look for. Is the individual a good listener? Are they just waiting for someone else to talk? It's sort of intangible qualities, but it really kind of comes down to how do they communicate with other people? Do they value trusting relationships with other people in the team? Or are they just overconfident in their abilities and, hey, you got to bring me to the team, I'm a 10Xer, I'm really productive. Even if you are, the loss of productivity that you'll get in the rest of your team by having to work with someone who's kind of toxic is perhaps a bigger impact to an organization.
So Paul and I are going through this right now, right? Trying to hire a full-time developer for our internal systems. And we've got a few of these examples too. So I'm curious on your take on this, Tony, a little bit. Is, you look at a resume and you look at the skill set and you're like, okay, Python skills, great. Understands how to build a UI, great. You have a phone conversation, seems to go well, but then you bring them in for the interview. And you can tell almost instantly that the cultural fit is not there, right? Just the way they present themselves in person versus on the phone is one aspect of that. And when they come in, they're not asking the questions. They're just kind of listening, right? And you kind of get that early sense that, yeah, maybe culturally this isn't going to work. This is a unique environment. We have a very laid back atmosphere here. We're smoking cigars, we're drinking on the set. Exactly. And so some people aren't comfortable with that. And you get that right away. Now I'm going to take you to the opposite side. You've got a guy who's really engaging, really excited, but doesn't necessarily have the skill set you're looking for. Maybe they're doing a lot more on machine learning, artificial intelligence, some really advanced stuff that you're going to get to somewhere down the road. But can they learn the basics? Can they do the core functionality stuff and learn the basics that we still need to accomplish before we can go do some of those advanced skills? How do you balance those kind of two extremes when you're interviewing?
That's a really good question. Let me see if I can think about some examples here at Endgame. So, when we were doing development a couple of years ago, a lot of our stack in the back end, at least, was Python. But about a year into it, we decided to move everything into Go. And most of the people that we had hired didn't have experience in Go. Maybe only one or two people. And so that was a challenge for the team, but I think a lot of them, whenever we first interviewed them and brought them onto our team, they had experience maybe going from Java to Python, or the language is more like a tool. And so they had experience, or they had talked about some experiences where they've had to kind of switch their specialties, the language that they spent the most time in. And they kind of viewed the language more of just a tool in the tool belt to get the job done. So if you're talking to someone that's got a lot of experience and you feel like they'll be, they'll get along with the team and there's a really good cultural fit. Usually you want to ask, some more questions about, tell me about a time that, you worked in OCaml and you started doing some more work in Python because you're a data scientist and data engineering is an important thing to you. And if someone doesn't have that experience, it could always still be done. And I guess maybe the last thing I'll say is that at some point it's a leap of faith when you bring someone onto your team. And that first 90-day period when they're on your team, it's really important to set goals and say, here are the things that we're trying to do. Let's help you achieve them. And so, the interview doesn't end on the day you hire. It's sort of, there's a whole period of time you need to invest in someone when you bring them onto the team that can help them succeed.
So I have another potentially tough question for you, but I think it's an important question to ask, and not looking for a right answer, but ideas. You mentioned early on that you always attempt, or it's important to attempt to promote diversity in the workforce, which is kind of a hot topic these days, at least within the hacker and security community. How do you find, assuming you're getting candidates that represent diversity in the first place, but how do you try to align what you were describing in terms of good fit and is going to work well with the team when you're necessarily bringing in somebody that's potentially, for lack of a better term, different?
Yeah, that's a really good question. This is actually, I feel like, a pretty tough problem for the tech industry in general, as I'm sure.
Yeah, that's why we're looking for you to for an answer.
Or guidance.
So I live in Washington, D.C., and it's home to Howard University. And every year they do a hackathon with their students, freshmen coming in just out of high school, and they stay up for 24 hours and they work on building an app for kind of aligned to a couple of goals that the program has for that particular hackathon. And they're always looking for mentors and coaches. And so I volunteer to be a coach for that program. And again, I don't go there to recruit people to join the company. I think it's I would love it if we found someone, but they're in college and I don't want to pull someone away from their education. But that investment at an early part of someone's career, just to say like, hey, let's keep talking. I'm now LinkedIn, connected to LinkedIn and Facebook on a couple of the people that I met in that program. That I feel like is kind of it's maybe not a direct answer to your question, but I feel like that's kind of an early investment that if you're in the tech industry, you need to be making that. You need to actually be helping as many different communities as possible. Another thing that we do is we host Black Code Collective at Endgame. We've done it a couple of times now, just to give people an opportunity to use our space. And we've talked about security before, but we don't always talk about security. So a lot of it's just making sure you're giving people opportunities to learn more about the security industry. Tell people about this podcast. Hey, you should go check it out if you want to learn more. A lot of it's just creating more opportunities for people. Because a lot of the times, and I think a lot of people that are hiring managers, when you're looking at candidates coming in, whenever they're coming into the office, that diversity is really important. You need those different backgrounds and perspectives because you don't always want the whole group just saying, yes, this is a good idea. You want to be challenged. That's really important.
Yeah. How much do you place on education as part of your recruiting process? We've had a lot of discussions on the shows about, do you need a 4-year bachelor's degree to be qualified to work in the industry? And I don't think you do. I'm just curious how Endgame approaches, recruiting people either in college, not in college. How do you find some of that talent, and how much does education impact or not impact some of the hiring decisions that you guys make?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I also don't care if someone's got a 4-year college degree. I think most of us think the same way here at Endgame. We have different places where people can come into the team, even if you've got a totally different background. So we've got someone that's joined our team now 2 years ago as an intern, and their background before that was had nothing to do with security. Actually, had nothing to do with programming. And yet we brought them in, and they've, over the last year or so, they've really shined, and it's been an amazing experience on our QA team. Yeah, we don't care if someone's got a college education. That doesn't matter. Can you get the job done? Are you going to give up easily? Or are you going to try hard to learn and teach others sort of your the things that you kind of know and you're bringing to the table? And so I think we've got a lot of really cool examples of people that we've brought in to the company where they were from a boot camp. And I hear a lot of people in the industry say, oh, that's maybe not the best place to recruit. And I don't think that's right. I think, you're going to find good people everywhere you look. You just got to look hard enough.
Yeah, and that adds to the diversity side, right? In a lot of respects, exactly. Is because you're bringing in skill sets from people that maybe didn't go through 4 years of coding, or they're coming from a completely different background. And I think the point is there's probably a role for them in the organization, and they bring in a different perspective. They may not understand technology much at all, but they maybe know how to use an application or an interface and be a great tester, for example. Like in your example, you could have somebody that's really good at maybe defining and understanding what customer requirements are and writing a set of requirements to actually build a product. So you don't always have to be that keyboard junkie that all you do is code. There are definitely other roles. I mean, I haven't coded since, we were talking about this the other day, I haven't coded since 1995 as part of my master's program. I realized I wasn't going to be a coder, but I still understand some of those basic skills. I couldn't code today, but I understand how software was built. I understood aspects of how to build requirements, etc. That's an important skill set for a product company that's trying to build a product.
Yeah, that's right. And I think sometimes you can overlook the value in having someone totally new to what you're trying to do. Just ask questions that force you to challenge your assumptions and explain why you're doing something and why it matters. Just going through that exercise of, yeah, here's why it matters. Here's why we're doing it. And yeah, that's an assumption that we made. Why did we make that assumption? Oh, yeah, let's talk about that some more. Just going through that exercise is actually really helpful. You should be open to making sure you can explain why something you're doing matters. Because if you can't, that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the what are some of the questions you use to really try to understand aspects of the skill set, but also some of that fit in putting them in the right role? I think that's hard for some people to really figure out, what should I ask, right? Because I'm going to have Paul watch this one later as we continue to recruit for our engineering resource.
Yeah, that's a really good question too. A lot of the sort of technical kind of experience questions, we actually put pretty up front in our screening process. And sort of depending on the type of candidate you're interviewing for, it's a different set of questions that the hiring managers will come up with. So if it's sort of a front-end heavy candidate that we're trying to find, we'll ask a lot of questions about the JavaScript and the language. We actually have an exercise that we give people, a coding challenge that we give people, and we try to give it to them to do on their own. And we don't give anyone sort of a time frame to do it in. We just say, take a couple of days and give the results back to us, and it's got to pass these set of tests. We try to avoid live coding challenges, because when you put someone in that position, I mean, that's a high stress situation. And I don't know about the two of you, but typically, we don't have managers or leaders overlooking everyone 24/7 as they code. That's just not natural. It's not how it works. So the coding challenge is a nice way to actually address some of those technical questions that you may have for the fit on, do they know Python? And that helps you kind of answer a lot of those questions right away, and affords you an opportunity to ask sort of those intangible questions about, what do they get excited about? How do they think about problems? What's been a really hard thing that they've had to overcome? How do they, have you ever, tell me about a time that you felt like giving up? And so whenever we're talking to someone in person, I like to spend a lot more time talking about that, because I know they're sitting at the table, they've done a really awesome job on the coding challenge. And so they know their stuff when it comes to the language that we need them to be experts in. And so now you get to focus on sort of the, how's it going to work with you on this team? How do you like to communicate? Are you used to working distributed? Do you like to write things down? Tell me about what you look for in a pull request, and how do you, whenever you disagree with something that someone's done in a pull request, how do you go about bringing that up? Are you really direct? Are you giving other examples? It's a lot of questions that you kind of focus on in terms of how are they going to communicate with their team? What do they value in communication from their team? And how often are they going to do that? And by the way, earlier I think I talked a little bit about humility and curiosity and tenacity. That actually can kind of go both ways. That actually can be bad too if you have someone that's maybe a little too humbled, maybe they're not ambitious enough to actually get a job done, or if they're too curious, they'll never be focused to actually get something done. Or if they're too tenacious, that they may just go down rabbit holes. So like culture is a weird thing to talk about whenever you're interviewing people, because you can't just write 10 things on a wall and be like, all right, we solved the problem. Those 10 things are our culture. It's just like 1,000 conversations that happen every day with your team. It's so hard to like make a culture happen. It really is in that interviewing process and sort of seeing like, how are you going to talk with other people? What do you actually care about when you're working with other people in a group?
Yeah, John Strand talks about how he brings interns in as well. And I think it's interesting. I like the technical aspect of actually giving them a project. What John does, he says, look, I'm going to pay you an hourly fee to build something. Build it in the language you want, but here's what I want you to build. And he says, I'll pay you for the number of hours that it takes you to build it. And he uses that as a way to gauge not only their technical aptitude, but also how long does it take. So his example is, it might take you 500 hours to build this thing. I'll pay you the 500 hours, but I'm probably not going to hire you because it took way too long. Where other people can solve that problem maybe a little faster. And he uses that as a way to actually test out the skill set before he potentially hires them on, which I think is a really interesting concept.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess earlier I did say, we try to make sure that we don't time box the coding challenges, but I guess we kind of do. If someone takes maybe 2.5, 3 weeks, when we're asking, hey, are you done yet? Then we're going to ask questions about like, do you not have the time to do it? Or, is there a challenge that's happening here? But that's actually a really good way to incentivize the work, and also to kind of measure, how quickly can someone get something done? How well do they do? That's good.
Yeah, in John's case, I don't think he really cares about the language as much as he does about can they solve the problem. In your case, language might be a little more specific. In our case, it might be as well. So, there's always a double edge to that as well. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey, I know you had a quick question.
I do have a quick question. As I'm sitting here listening, I'm kind of wondering, assuming we're talking to you because you have enjoyed some success in all this. What would you say are your three? I'm sort of shifting gears here subtly a little bit. What makes you or Endgame good at doing this? What are the top 3 things that you think you guys are doing well that puts you in a position of being able to provide suggestions and guidance to others to try to build a solid organization?
That's a fantastic question. And by the way, I don't know if we're having success. I mean, I think we are, but you never really know. Again, culture is kind of a weird thing to talk about.
Okay, because, humility, number one.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. But I mean, it's it's a tough thing to talk about. No one's great at it, but top 3 things. I think honestly, listening to people and having empathy for the situations that everyone's in is really, really important. So empathy has got to be high on our list, probably number 1. Everyone's got to be able to kind of understand where everyone else is coming from, because there's going to be a tense moment. A product manager and an engineering lead are going to have disagreements. But if they have empathy for where everyone's kind of coming from, that's going to really help that tense moment actually lead to a really good solution. So empathy is probably number 1 on the list. Number 2 is really it's a no asshole policy, and that took a long time certainly for me to learn. I mean, when we flipped the table in 2016 to work on the product, the product didn't exist. We wrote it from scratch, and that was a really hard year. I kind of joke that one way to kind of measure how stressful that year was is that I think Endgame, all of our employees, we had 17 babies born that year. So it's kind of a stressful year. But we ended up allowing, I think, some toxic behaviors. That person's very disruptive on the team, but they're they're really productive, they're really contributing, and they're going to help us get to the release out. And that was a mistake. That really prevented us from coming together as a team and building trusting relationships. So, no jerks is probably number 2. We're close tied to number 1. And then number 3 is probably trying to outlearn your competition. We talked a little bit about this earlier. We were a small team. We were late to the market. It was crowded. Our competition, was 10 times our size. We weren't going to hire a bunch of people overnight. That would be a hard thing to do and a silly thing to do. Your culture would probably be destroyed pretty quickly if you did that. So we had to think a lot about, all right, well, let's see how we can learn from our mistakes and make it a safe place to take risks. Let's try new things. If something breaks or something goes really bad, let's not blame someone. Let's figure out why it happened and make the organization or the product more resilient so it doesn't happen in the future. So the third thing I would probably say to answer your question would be, making sure everyone values learning and doing retrospectives and finding out why things happen and trying to just, if you can't hire, try to outlearn your competition.
Those are great tips internally. If I'm an engineer and I want to enter into this space, what are some of the recommendations for them? Because I think they also need to understand where do they need to focus in their interview process to be successful in especially a startup like Endgame or any of the bazillion other security startups out there.
Wow, that's a good question too. So one thing that's actually an easy thing to do is to follow some people on on the internet and Twitter or blogs. A couple of people that I like to listen to and watch give talks. Charity Majors, the CTO at Honeycomb.io, she's amazing. Really good pointers on sort of the kind of qualities that someone should have as an engineer. Laura Hogan is another person. She just wrote a book called Resilient Management. And so if you're looking to become an engineer, I think it's always nice to understand the perspective and have empathy for an engineering manager. What is it that they're looking for in someone? So those are 2 people maybe that I would recommend. And then in terms of, kind of developing your skill set, I think joining an open source project that's kind of active is always a good idea, and trying to go look through the issues and see if there's some bugs that you can fix. And just by finding a simple low-hanging fruit bug, getting your development environment stood up and working through the tests and to get all of that done, you're actually going to learn a whole lot more just to maybe fix something very simple. And it could be something as easy as like fix a typo. A lot of the time people aren't going to take the time to do that. But if you make a PR and you do that, you're going to learn so much more just by going through that process. Attending hackathons actually, I think, is kind of cool, especially if you're trying to get into a new area and you want to just build out your network. That's always a good thing to do. You're going to learn something technically, but you're also probably going to get even more value out of the people you meet. So I would recommend going to meetups and hackathons in your area. Meetup.com is a really good resource to find out kind of what's happening in your city.
Great recommendations. Tony, I want to thank you for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly. Great discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jeff.
And if anybody
enjoyed it,
if anyone wants to learn more about Endgame, please visit securityweekly.com/Endgame. You never know, there might be a job in your near future. Jeff, thanks for joining me today on Enterprise Security Weekly. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week on Enterprise Security Weekly.